This is the Over the Hump class, the Over the Hump review chorus. Middle of course 6, which is the middle of the courses, which is the middle of the review of the middle of the courses. Anyway, home stretch. Point.
Those are hackers.
Oh, appreciate it. Thank you.
So, reminder, I am away for the next 2 weeks. And we'll pick up after that.
Sorry.
Celebrate something,
I just
right?
imagined you in like Puerto Rico.
Feel happy about something, right? It's good.
Sashi Apokhi Drishin Metok Tram Nrirav Lingshin Yundevyam Padi Sangye Shindu Mite Vivargi Dropin Namda Shinla Chiparsho Hidam Guru Ratnamandala Kamniyatami Sangye Shirang Saki Jognamla Janju Bardu Dakni Gyapsuchi Dahi Jinyen Gipetsanamki Drola Panchir Sangye Driparsho Sangye Chidam Saki Jognamla Janchu Vardu Dakni Gyapsuchi Dahi Jinyen Gipetsanamki Drola Panchir Sangye Driparsho Sangye Shirang Saki Jognamla Janchu Vardu Dakni Gyapsuchi Daki Jinyen Gipetsanamki Drola Panchir Sangye Driparsho.
So please sit comfortably for a few minutes just to try to shift your mind into neutral. We'll just watch our breath, do breathing meditation for a while, try to disengage all the thoughts, disengage from all the activities and content of the day and get into a different space. So please check that your torso is in one plane, spine straight, shoulders level. Breathing gently through your nostrils. You count 21 rounds of your breath, slowly and gently, beginning with an exhalation. Set an aspiration in your heart that by being here we can end all suffering everywhere very quickly. Try to cultivate that feeling, that wish. Be very clear, that's why we're here. Have a little conversation with whichever holy being you feel closest to and ask them to help you and bless you and increase your capacity to understand the things we'll speak about tonight. You can offer that we're doing this and we need their blessing to end all suffering everywhere very quickly. That this is the fastest path. Try to get really clear in your heart and mind that that's what you want tonight. To end all suffering everywhere. Every realm, every being, every dimension. In your heart, ask to receive the help to understand these holy things and to gain their realization and insight so that you can do so in this very life. Spend a moment thinking about all the goodness you've done from any time in your life. Think of your virtues. Think of the benefit you've achieved for others. Things you've done to increase others' happiness. Spend a moment just filling your mind with these thoughts and ideas and recollections. You can think of today's virtue or whatever strikes you the most from your life. Whatever you feel most proud about. Imagine if you could do this for every being in existence, and much more. Imagine what that would feel like, think what that would be. Try to feel what it would be like to be surrounded by completely, ultimately happy beings all day long. Feel what your mind is like when it's full of joy and happiness. Extrapolate and imagine what it would be like to have this and more all the time. Try to imagine that. So by the power of our goodness, may we quickly attain this. May we quickly receive the blessings of all holy beings. May we quickly come to realize suchness and practice virtue, continuously filling our minds with joy and bliss. So thank you for coming. Tonight we finish the diamond cutter review, which is on ultimate reality and emptiness. So we started talking about it last week, right? And we said if you're going, we said first that when you talk about emptiness or ultimate reality or shunyata, they're all synonyms, right? All these terms are synonyms. Strange lighting.
Looks good here.
What do you think?
The backlights off?
Yes.
We lost those Buddhist necklaces.
Is it shining on you, John?
No, it's okay, but these ones in the back.
Yeah, that one's off actually.
Isadora and Bruce are in the dark. No?
Is the light switch just with the curtains
No?
on
All right,
against the wall?
Perhaps the bulbs are just burned out.
Yeah, those lights are off.
Just
There's
sit in
a light
shadows.
switch right by the curtain on this wall.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
That helps a little.
Yeah, a little better, yeah. Anyway, so we started talking about the diamond cutter, ultimate reality, the nature of perception, the nature of reality, what emptiness is and is not, and just as a pop quiz, not to wait until the end. And talk about mental imaging. So I picked up this cup and I expected cold water and it's hot water. And the wrong mental image didn't compute. And talk about Dunchis and things. Anyway, so if we talk about emptiness or ultimate reality, I said last week that anytime we talk about emptiness in the abstract, it's problematic, right? What do we always have to do when we talk about emptiness? When we say something is empty, what do we always have to say?
Just empty of what?
Yeah, empty of something. It's a misleading statement in my opinion to say, oh, that's empty. There's a big inference involved, and there's a big subtext, and there's a big tagline which is missing from that statement. And to say something is empty is only useful if one is speaking to a very well-educated Buddhist practitioner, and there aren't perhaps as many as one would think, or one might hope. So if one is going to really be a useful Buddhist, a useful philosopher, one has to speak of emptiness. One really, in my opinion, one really must speak of emptiness accurately and precisely and correctly. So, if we're going to say the cup is empty, what would be the appropriate statement?
The cup is empty of self-existent objectness.
It's empty of self-existence, it's empty of having a nature of its own, it's empty of existing from its own side, it's empty of its own self-standing identity. Yeah, please.
In a sense, aren't we kind of chasing our own tail? Because the reason why there are these great root texts and commentaries that run into hundreds and thousands of pages that elucidate this subject isn't because they want to hear themselves talk.
I don't know, is it?
Or maybe it is, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But because slapping a label or even a brief explanation does not succeed really in identifying the object which we deny, or many another abstruse topic. So, we say that it's better to say lacking self-existent nature, better than nothing at all. But is it really sufficient to the purpose? We're implying that it is
No,
by giving a label to it.
I'm not saying that using more descriptive and precise wording is sufficient. I'm saying it's at least not misleading and confusing, right? Because I think personally that when people say, oh, John's empty, or the cup is empty, or whatever else, it's just a generalization and a confusing statement that doesn't help one to analyze anything. It doesn't help one to penetrate more deeply into reality, and it doesn't help increase anyone's understanding. It's just sort of a buzzword that leads to what, right? So to me, when we talk about emptiness and ultimate reality, we have to speak about the gotcha, right? We talked about the thing that we deny. We have to talk about the thing that we're saying doesn't exist. You know, when we say something is empty, we're saying it's empty of self-existence. We're saying it's lacking a self-existent nature, right? And this is a review of last class. It's not the point of this class. I'm digressing a little bit, but just for the sake of being thorough, right? Because I want to make sure we're all on the same page before we go on. So if we say that this cup is empty of any self-existent nature, or we say this cup is empty of an identity of its own, we say that it's empty of any cupness from its own side, we're simply saying that the concept comes from me. The idea of a cup comes from me. The label and the name and the imputation and the projection comes from me, right? Cup is not projecting from this into my brain, right? My mind is the thing which is taking in shapes and colors and sensory data and processing it to the conclusion of that's a cup, and then projecting the identity and the concept and the name and the term and the full experience of a cup, right? So, you know, I go, oh, there's a certain hardness to my senses, to my tactile sensation, there's a certain visual identity, smell, etc. And putting all that together with my mind, I come up with the cup, right? It's not really hard. It's not a big deal. It's simply that if we say that something is empty, we're saying that it's empty of its own self-existent identity, right? So, what's the big deal, right? The big deal is that if that's true of the cup, it's true of me and you and everything else in existence. It's true of the walls, it's true of the people. It's true of good things, it's true of bad things, it's true of pain, it's true of pleasure.
It's like watching TV.
It's true, yeah. You've got little flashing pixels there that we're filling with experience and meaning and emotion, right? So sound waves and flashing lights, right?
3D TV.
Yeah, 2D, 3D. Yeah, that's right. So, so if it's true of everything, what does that mean for our existence, and what does that mean for our world, and what does that mean for our reality? It means that our mind is the source of our reality. It means that the way in which my mind takes in information, and processes information, conceptualizes information, and projects information creates my reality, is my reality, right? Perception is reality for me and everyone else. And each sentient being's perception is unique, right? Each existing being has its own individual take on everything. We all have a different perception of everything in this room. There are many broad similarities, and there are many subtle or obvious differences in our perceptions of the same thing, right? So that's what we mean when we say that it's empty of self-existence, right? That's what we're talking about, okay? So, and that goes, as we said last week, that goes all the way to the very nature of reality. That goes all the way to my identity as a human being, and that goes all the way to the experience of this room, or this human existence, or the existence of this human realm, we would say from a Buddhist perspective. Right? So, you know, we said last week that if it's true that my mind is taking in data through the senses and processing it in its own unique way and projecting that as my valid experience of reality, if I had a different kind of mind, I'd have a different kind of reality. If I had different senses and I had a different mind that would process and project total purity, I'd be living in a total pure realm. Right? If I had a mind and senses which only interpret which only process and interpret things as pain, I'd be in a heavy suffering realm, a hell realm or whatever, right? And so, as Buddhists, our job is to change the nature of our mind, to change the nature of our perception, right? Such that our minds force us to perceive things in a better way. We talked last week about, why does the thought cup pop into my mind? When I look at this, and I think I want to pick that up, that just popped into my mind, right? I didn't consciously say, John, tell yourself to think, pick up that cup, right? It doesn't work that way, right? And things just pop into our mind from seemingly nowhere, right? We have our we listen to ourselves in our narrative, in our tapes, in our mental discourse, right? And sometimes we're aware of it, and sometimes we're not. But typically, when something pops into my mind, I don't like that, I like that, it's just my truth, it's my reality, And so our job as Buddhist practitioners is to condition our mind, train our mind, habituate our mind, so that on a very subtle level, on a very subtle energetic level, on a karmic level, the things which are coming into our mind spontaneously are good and pleasurable and virtuous and blissful and divine and paradisical ultimately, right? So that's a quick recap of last week, right? So we should start this week's class. Okay. So tonight we're talking about if you want to experience emptiness directly, how do you do that? How do you go about that, right? So this idea, so again, to take a step back, so how do we train our mind to be virtuous? How do we train our mind to perceive things as pure? How do we train ourselves to be virtuous beings such that our every experience is virtue and goodness, right? And going back to course 5, which we reviewed last time, whatever you put out is what comes back to you, right, karmically. So if we're going to perceive everything as pure, we have to put out purity, and we have to think pure thoughts, right? We have to have a mind which is filled with purity, and which is generating purity, and which is projecting purity and virtue, right? How do we get our mind to do that? How do we get our mind to stop being afflicted? How do we get our mind to stop hating, feeling depressed, feeling upset, craving, and on and on, right? How do we eliminate all those things? Okay, from a Buddhist perspective, the only way to do that is to stop seeing things as self-existent, to see things as being empty of self-existence, right? As long as I think that my pleasure and my happiness is coming from this little thing, I'm going to crave after it and I'm going to want it, right? And I'm going to waste my life as a result. So, hence the importance of understanding the nature of reality and emptiness. If I want to be virtuous all the time, if I want to be able to condition my mind to perceive everything as pure and virtuous, I have to be able to stop being afflicted. I have to stop collecting negative karma. I have to stop hurting people. I have to stop generating negativity in myself and in the world, right? How do I stop generating negativity in myself and in the world? There's only one way. To perceive ultimate reality, to perceive emptiness. Okay? To perceive that this cup and me and you and everything else in existence lacks its own identity. Right? As long as I think that everything has its own nature, I'm going to collect negative karma relative to it. As long as I think that, the joy and the love of the world comes from some woman over there, I'm going to chase after her and try to get her no matter what I have to do, if I have to hurt someone or lie or cheat or steal or whatever, right? Typical human behavior, or whatever, the way to get money is to lie or cheat or steal, whatever, pick anything that we want. As long as we think that the goodness of that thing is resident in the object, as long as I think the goodness of the money is resident in the money, is, the beauty is resident in the partner and, all the rest, as long as I have that self-existent view, I'm going to do non-virtue, engage in negativity to get those self-existent things because I'm ignorant and I think that it's over there, and if I can just go over there and get it and take it into myself, that somehow I'll be happy. And that's ignorance, and the world doesn't work that way. From a Buddhist perspective, everything arises within ourselves and we project it onto outer objects, right? And so it's impossible to not see things as self-existent unless you perceive emptiness. Until we perceive emptiness, we will always chase after outer objects as containing the stuff we want, right? And we can't stop ourselves, right? So that's why seeing emptiness is so important. That's why understanding ultimate reality and directly experiencing ultimate reality is so important. As we said before, it's by experiencing ultimate reality directly that we can finally stop seeing everything as being self-existent. We can stop believing that all of the goodness resides in the stuff outside of us. We can stop believing that, you know, that beautiful person over there, or that money over there, or that cake over there will lead me to be happy. You know, we know for a fact that it doesn't work that way, and that's not the nature of reality in an ultimate sense, in a deeper way, right? So, so hence the importance of experiencing ultimate reality and perceiving emptiness directly, right? If we don't do that, we cannot put an end to our ignorant misperceptions, and therefore we cannot ever end our suffering. So seeing emptiness is the critical key to becoming enlightened. It's the most important doorway that one must go through to become enlightened, right? And if we don't do that, we can't become enlightened, because it's impossible to end our mental afflictions and our ignorant grasping and our ignorant behavior, which causes us to collect negative karma and see the world as painful. Right? Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about how seemingly impossible that seems for a mind that is so habituated to seeing things as self-existent, even if that is the answer, if I hear that as the answer for the first time,
Yeah.
I can only ever grasp it with self-existence in my mind.
Yeah.
Like my mind has nothing but, oh, there is the answer.
Out there.
Yeah,
Over there.
you just told me that, and now I have to chase that.
I have to go over there and get it.
I have to go over there and get that emptiness that is a positive,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
what we learn is negated.
Yeah. It's a very deeply held view that things reside outside of us, and if we can just go find them and acquire them, that things will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is true of emptiness, and that's why they say emptiness has its own emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
Not to be confusing, but the idea of emptiness is a concept, right, that we're working with to get to a realization that will change the way in which our mind functions, and the way in which we perceive the world, and the way in which we live in the world. So, and so we'll talk about it, and that's what tonight's class is about. Tonight's class is about how do we get from where we are to that experience, right? How can we go from this way of thinking, deeply ingrained, deeply habituated, countless lifetimes of habituation that say everything's outside me, and all identity and all goodness, all badness is resonant in the things outside of me, right? I mean, that's just our eternal existence thus far. And we are trying, as spiritual practitioners and highly trained Buddhists, we're trying to get to a place which is not that, which is seeing how things exist ultimately free of that ideation, free of that way of thinking and perceiving. Right? What does reality look like without us putting something on it? Right? What does reality look like free of me projecting something on it? Onto
Nothing.
it?
It can't look like anything.
Looks like a diamond.
We're gonna get there, okay? We're gonna get there, Bruce.
That was a trick question. Got it. You got it.
Alright.
John, did you say last week that it's about taking it away? It's not about putting on. It's about it taking away.
Which it? When you say it, it's about.
Oh. Emptiness, happiness. It's not like putting the beliefs on. It's about
Happiness
taking.
happiness is a projection. Happiness is a term. Happiness is a label. Happiness is an idea in and of itself. And so anything we call happiness is a conceptualization and a positive notion, right? That we're asserting. That's this reality, this level of reality, right? Anything which is a conceptual thing is part of this reality, this level of reality, right? Not ultimate reality. Ultimate reality, state of emptiness, is free of projection and conception. And so I think I don't remember if we talked about it last week, but it's hard for us to conceive, well, it's impossible to conceive of what a state looks like. I say it's the wrong language even. You can't even language it because language is positive and projecting in dualistic, subject-object. So, but given that we have to try to talk around this, we're trying to move towards a state and experience a state wherein we are not mentally projecting and conceptualizing. Right? So our normal life is, this is blue and this is red, and I like this and I don't like that, and I'm a boy and she's a girl, and this is inside and that's outside, and on and on and on endlessly. Okay, but imagine living without all of that subject-object identification. That's really what we're talking around. Yeah.
It's like in the Lotus Sutra, the original sutra, when they say the peaceful practice, when they say that the Bodhisattva arriving to a point that is that stillness, when he coming to the mission and the life, he can, teach the Bodhisattva way because it's in stillness. It's like an experience that, like you said, is not discrimination through language to say this is good or bad. It's not this dualistic way to put or to nominate objects or concepts. It's kind of a stillness experience that you are really in a stillness, right?
Yeah, stillness is a big part of it. So we have to talk about all these things. So let's we haven't done page 1 yet. But we're going to get to all this. So this is what we have to get to. And so it's great that you're all asking because we need to engage and address these things. Okay. So and Hector, to your point, how do we get from where we are to there without falling into some self-existent way of thinking that I got to go through door number 1, and get the magic prize?
That's part of it, but I'm also thinking just using the methodology of seeds.
Yeah.
It seems to me that if like produces like, you need at least one pure seed to produce one pure experience. At least one. And if
so
we've never had it.
Well, so you guys are like cutting to the chase here.
Sorry.
You're cutting to the end of class, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You do have to collect the causes to have the result.
Yeah.
One must collect the causes to have the experience of anything. A result can't manifest unless it's caused. Everything is caused according to Buddhism, right? Things aren't random. It's not a random walk in the park. It's not caused by God or some, omnipotent being. It is all caused by us according to what we collect in our mind, the seeds we collect in our mind. So how do we collect those seeds? And we must collect those seeds, and we have to talk about that. Okay. So,
Page 1.
if you want to see emptiness, what do you have to do? All right. If you want to experience ultimate reality, which is different than this reality, completely other reality, different from this reality, and we said last week, all around us, everywhere. It's not like you got to go through the magic door over there to get to, through the curtain. Ultimate reality is, all around us, everywhere. Okay? We simply lack the capacity to perceive it. Right? Okay. At present, if you're an ordinary person. Okay. So first, you've got to meet an extraordinary teacher, and you have to put a lot of time into studying it intellectually. It requires deep intellectual understanding. Hundreds, thousands of hours of exposure to